This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming soon. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch the game and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique, interactive specials that give you an additional stake in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be, from 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown to a free round of drinks if the quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your teams or players record a relevant stat. When the conditions of your deals are met, coupons are sent to your device to show to your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play very soon. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io. That's score-app.io. And follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Score Deals. Score. Watch games. Score deals.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Motor City Sports Rant. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, Jason Jarvie, not in studio, but kind enough to give us his time. I know that he's bearing with this hot weather that we're getting here in September. Jason, what's happening, brother?
Oh, I had to make time for the Motor City Sports Rant, and I didn't want to, I think I've left you high and dry too many times, so I wanted to make as much, I needed to do everything I could to at least get on a little bit and talk with you. So I am calling you remotely from my car.
No problem, Jason. I want to definitely get your sense before we talk about the Lions, and everybody in town is disappointed. I want to get a sense of how you experienced it. The Lions are sitting at 2-1. Many people felt like they could have made a statement by coming back on the Atlanta Falcons. But before we get into all that, how are you tolerating this nonsense with the heat, man? 90-degree weather in September, and it's not like it's that nice 90 degrees where you can go out there and hang out on the water or hang out all day. It's hot and humid. It's one where you got to crank the AC down. I think I got it at the office in here like at 69 degrees.
Yeah, and I know there's a joke to be made about what you have the temperature at, but that being said, yeah, it's effing hot outside. It's ridiculous. Back when kind of this whole heat wave started at my house, we've had issues with our AC. So at the beginning of the summer, we always had to get it recharged. So we were kind of hoping that we'd make it through the entire summer, not have to worry about it getting charged again. And we had that issue. So over, I think, last weekend, we had to sit through the entire weekend of it just being miserably hot in our house. It got up to like 80 inside the house, and it was just gross. But we got the AC back up and running, and that's my advice to everyone out there. You just gotta stay in your AC or like with a fan directly on you. Otherwise, it is absolutely miserable.
Ooh, Jason. Well, I want to get your sense. Everybody in town is talking about it. For me, it hurt at the time because of the fact that we were so genuinely excited. The Lions competed with the Falcons. That's what we were looking for. The second half, they played amazing. They forced Matt Ryan into several turnovers. They look like they belong on the field with the Atlanta Falcons, and all the fans in Detroit at Ford Field did their job. And all of a sudden, Golden Tate gets that touchdown, and it's ripped away from us. And the feeling I was left with was not same old Lions, not, oh my God, we were screwed, but at the same time, the feeling I was left with was, again, another rule that is really quite ridiculous is going to hurt the Detroit Lions. And as excited as I was to cheer for the Lions, it was a little bit tough. a little bit after when they went to the review and the announcer started to say that, you know what, this could be a situation where Golden Tate's knee was down and there's this whole rule with the runoff. And when it actually happened, it was devastating. And it's just sad. I know this rule is probably going to be looked at in the offseason, but when it relates to the Detroit Lions, being screwed by a rule is really unfortunate. They got the call right, but it just leaves all the fans feeling like we got screwed. And it was really disappointing because of the fact that, at Ford Field, they were chanting, MVP, MVP for Stafford. The offense, in terms of the 2-minute offense, was amazing. But at the end of the day, the Lions walk away from last week with the loss, and many of us still probably to this day are not over it yet.
Yeah, and I can truly say that this loss is a very different loss. I think in years past, when these rule games happen, whether it be completing the process, whether it be the whole the Seattle Seahawks batting the ball in the end zone, or the non-existent, the pass interference that was or wasn't in the playoff game. After all of those, there was just a miserable pit in my stomach as a Lions fan. But after this, you pretty much just have to accept that the Lions are going to have to be the ones who take the matters into their own hands. And in years past, you always are just you're always down in the Lions regardless. And I think there was so much positivity from that second half and in that game, of being able to battle back against probably the best team in the NFC right now, that I allowed myself 10, 15 minutes after the game to be pissed that once again, it's another rule that, yes, they did get it right. That is the correct call, but it just so happened to happen against our team once again. I gave myself 10, 15 minutes, and then I kind of had to just let it go. Because really, there's nothing we can do. They're not going to overturn the call. They're not going to give the win to us. What I can do is I can be positive about what I saw on Sunday. And going forward, if we do end up, taking on the Atlanta Falcons somehow in the playoffs, I would be very, very happy to get that revenge on them.
No doubt. And I tweeted out on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, when the Lions play the Falcons, hopefully again in the playoffs, we want it to be at home because, man, the crowd was amazing. The Lions seemed to perform at a good clip. Obviously, there were some mistakes. There were things that the Lions can improve upon, obviously falling behind 17-3 to the Falcons. The run game, we're definitely going to talk about it. But in terms of feeling screwed, a lot of people have posted memes. A lot of people have posted videos with sad music in the background, kind of recalling some of the things you talked about. Where does this one rank for you in terms of the Lions being screwed? For me, I think it doesn't rank above the Dallas playoff game. I mean, where literally the officials call the correct call, a pass interference, and then they huddle up and in a play yet I have not seen since, they go, no, you know what? No, there was no real pass interference here. We're going to pick up the flag. I have yet to see that since, and I feel like that situation definitely played a part in the Lions losing. Yeah, they could have came back. They had the ball with an opportunity to win the game, but that was a huge drive for the Detroit Lions in that postseason game. I mean, the Calvin rule is up there. The Hail Mary was atrocious, but in terms of where this one ranks, I don't think it's the worst and the most egregious thing. I think that playoff game in recent memory is probably one of the most hurtful things that's happened to the Lions.
Oh, definitely. And there's games where we've lost, and it isn't because of some dumb rule that I consider worse. There's games where I can remember games with Joey Harrington where they're just driving down the field and he throws an interception that it just completely stalls the entire game and you lose because of that. I would actually put that below some of those games because we fought against this team, and we were literally inches away from winning. And, maybe if they did call it correctly and the clock – I think if you want to get mad about anything is that they didn't reset the clock correctly. Because, I think when he was down, it would have been 11 seconds. And at that point, it's questionable if you could have gotten a snap off at that point. But the Lions, they even went on Twitter, then they proved that they do have that ability to get that type of snap off, and they get everyone together. They didn't have to go very far; they're already down there on the goal line. So this rings really low for me. top of the list, it has to be that Dallas game because it was a clear pass interference, and there's no call on that. There's no call on Des Bryant for coming onto the field with no helmet. It's just there's so many things wrong with that game that you can point out. And in all these games that happen to the rule changes, there's always going to be the opportunities to in those games where the Lions could have helped themselves and they could have put themselves in better situations. Just looking back at this game, off of that Darius Slay, interception, they could have scored at that point, and we wouldn't have had to been in this situation where we had to drive down the field and make some miraculous touchdown. It's tough all the losses are hard to really rank, but this is actually really easy for me to take because I saw so much good in this game. Obviously, I mean, you want more out of your run game, and I was definitely a little bit worried that Devontae Freeman seemed to be able to do what he wanted whenever he got the ball. But other than that, I saw a lot of good stuff on Sunday.
Jason, just looking back on the Monday night game versus Seattle on the road, people were upset and highly frustrated with Jim Caldwell because of the fact that potentially he didn't know the rule in terms of the batted ball situation that cost the Lions. And if you check back on our YouTube page where we archive all of our recorded podcasts, you can go check out Detroit Sports Podcast on YouTube. I have an epic rant where I say this is going to continue to happen. The Lions are going to continue to be screwed royally by the referees, by the NFL, if Jim Caldwell and the organization doesn't stand up there and make it stop, make it go away by doing something, saying something, but in the end, this go around again, Jim Caldwell goes up there, stands up in front of the media and tells everybody, look, we got to move on. This stuff happens. We got to focus now going on the road to Minnesota. We can't let this linger. And I say to myself, no, go out there and say something, make a statement, say at least to your fan base that this is a ridiculous rule, that I can't believe we let this one slide, that this is a rule that obviously, it was correct. It was called correctly, but I'm hoping we get to the offseason and we can delete this rule because it's so ridiculous. And it's a situation, too, where you don't have to focus on the call. You could have focused on the fact that the referees called it a touchdown. There have been situations in the past where the referees don't call it a touchdown and actually get the call correct. Then you give the Lions a chance potentially on that, for an opportunity to rush if you just say he's down. But I know it's a bingo-bango play. It's super fast. But what people are frustrated is, what people are so mad about is the referees got the call wrong on the field by calling it a touchdown. And then the Lions are penalized, where if the referees had called him down and said he's short of the goal line, then the clock's at 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Maybe the Lions spike it. Maybe there's an opportunity for the Lions to at least see if they can have one more opportunity. So that's where the angst comes in, is that the Lions got screwed by a mistake. And I know this rule is going to be changed, but I'm not surprised this keeps happening because of the fact I said the Lions are going to be screwed time and time again. And I don't know if you got a chance yet this morning because you were working to see what Golden Tate tweeted about just yesterday. Des Bryant gets into the end zone, and when you start, slowing down the film and slowing down the DVR, it looks like Des Bryant's short. They review it, and the NFL goes, no, there's not enough conclusive evidence to overturn it. But at Ford Field with the Lions, there's a ton of conclusive evidence. There's a ton of evidence, and they're free to just do whatever to cause the Lions to lose, and it's just really tough. But
anybody who has that mentality of Detroit versus everybody, it's going to be hard to really convince them otherwise. Because even if there really isn't any initiative to screw over Detroit and all Detroit teams, there's too many of these instances where the fuel is there for the fire. One thing I do want to bring up is, what does this hurt yours and Vito's effect on the Lions? Because you apparently, broke this curse on the Detroit Lions. I'm calling shenanigans on that.
No, we did break the curse, because here's the thing. This might be the rallying cry that the Lions finally need to get over the hump. teams sometimes find different ways to get over the hump, and maybe this will be the rallying cry for the Lions to go on the road and kick some ass versus the Vikings, come back and play quality football the next few weeks. This doesn't have to derail the Lions. I mean,
if this is their rally cry, though, then wouldn't you argue that this is what breaks the curse and not what you and Vito did?
No, what me and Vito did was get the ball rolling on the notion that, look, the Lions organization is no longer going to be viewed as the laughingstock of the league. The Lions are no longer going to be teams that are going to be bottom dwellers. They're going to compete. And in a game versus the Atlanta Falcons, you got down early. You didn't look real solid. You let Freeman run all over the place. But did you cave? No, you came back and you played pretty well. And most people are walking away feeling pretty impressed with the Lions nationally, locally. Everyone's talking like, look, this is a team with the Lions. If they could fix a couple areas, get a couple guys back that were hurt, this is a team that can do some things. The one thing that this team has to figure out is, and it's so frustrating because you might have blown an opportunity to get a guy to fix the problem, is you can't win with Amir Abdullah being your running back. It's just not a situation where I think that Quinn invested correctly. I feel like by blowing that draft pick and not getting Kareem Hunt, by not, solidifying a solid position on offense, you might have passed on a guy where, I don't know if you saw it now, the dude's rushing, amazingly.
Kareem Hunt is nuts. I have him in a fantasy league.
It's nice,
He's
huh?
Been dominating.
I mean, this is a situation where you look at the Lions and you say, look, this Lions team is playing pretty good. There's a lot of depth. Aren't you quite impressed by what you've seen now? The first couple of weeks with the Lions, 2-1's not all that bad.
Absolutely. This Lions team, it feels different. And, I do feel positive going into Minnesota next week. And I think I'm going to expect that they can beat any team that they take on this year.
Ooh.
At least that they have a chance. I don't think I'm going to go into any game and say that this is an absolute loss. The only game that I might say that for would be at Green Bay, and that's because of the history that they have at Lambeau Field. But I think every other game, you can really argue that the Lions are going to be in it. The defense does seem to be legit. They've come up against, now they come up against the best of the NFC, and they threw what they had, and, they held them fairly well for the most part. They still did give up, 30 points? It's a machine of a team, and this team was able to fight back and to really persevere through an entire game. I think they're going to be in a lot of games this year.
How do you rate how Jim Caldwell's handled it? Do you feel like the comments made in the locker room are going to help this team? Do you like the fact that he's a steadying force? Because you know what question is coming up next. I know you heard the news over this past weekend. We're going to get into it real quickly, but how do you feel Caldwell and the team's handled it so far in the first couple hours now after the, getting screwed royally by the league?
Well, I know you and I differ on this point. I know you want Caldwell to be the rah-rah guy, and I'm okay with Caldwell doing what he does. This is what he does. He's calm, cool, collected, and he has his team focused, and I think that's the best thing that he can do, that we're not going to be focused on this loss and this ruling. And, at the end of the season, when he has an end of season press conference, he can talk about, hey, they should probably change that rule because that sucked. But this is what they need. They need calm, cool, collected to get him through this issue and on to the next week and the next game after that. And like you were just, yeah, I know we're going to talk about it. He's not a lame duck coach anymore. He got an extension.
They brought him back. They signed him before the season. I can't believe it. I was on the full love train with Bob Quinn. I was, going to be like, look, I might even invest in more than one game. Bob Quinn showing a team. And then, on a Friday, kind of like a news dump situation, the national media breaks the news. Jim Caldwell was resigned, not after 2 games, not after the start to the season, but before the year started. Bob Quinn decided that, look, I don't want my guy being a lame duck like Brad Ausmus was for the Tigers, and they kept it hush-hush, which is kind of ridiculous on its own merits there, but when I evaluate what I see in Jim Caldwell, he is fully fulfilling the role that we wanted him to have. I truly felt like Jim Caldwell was going to be a stopgap head coach. Get the team away from the garbage football that they had shown with previous managers and previous head coaches and get an organized system in place. He's brought in, and you have to give him credit for bringing in amazing coordinators. But I'm not asking should he be the head coach. Of course he should be the head coach. What I'm saying is when you ask this question, it could have dictated what Bob Quinn could have done. Do you think a team led by Matthew Stafford and Jim Caldwell as the head coach can hoist the Lombardi Trophy? And I say no because of the fact that, during the 60 minutes that goes on during a game, he makes too many mistakes. I feel like as an in-game manager,
how many mistakes has he made this year?
He's made quite a few mistakes. I mean,
how many? What? They're 2-1.
There are 2-1, but I feel like in game two there were so many penalties. There's situations where you look at the first couple games and coming out of the chute they look unprepared, unmotivated. This is a team that I don't think yet has put forth 60 minutes of a solid performance.
So you're blaming him for players' performances?
Yes, I think that the team is a reflection of Jim Caldwell, and when it comes down to it, there's going to be a situation that's going to be key where maybe he doesn't send out the proper unit, maybe he doesn't use timeouts properly, maybe he doesn't review the proper call. There's going to be a situation where when I ask the question, is Jim Caldwell a Super Bowl caliber winning head coach, I say no. And I think you had, I truly feel like Bob Quinn.
He's already won Super Bowls.
Oh, please, look, as a head coach, and I want to bring this point up. Bob Quinn had the trump card. I mean, I know this whole notion of being a lame duck head coach is truly real for general managers and coaches, and they do talk about it, but this was a truly perfect situation. This year, 2017, Jim Caldwell manages the team. He does what he's got to do, and at the end of the year, you see where it lies. I mean, let's say, Jason, they go 9-7, get to the postseason, back in, and again, they get shut out in the postseason and look like a team that's not prepared to be on the field. Now you got this guy for a couple more years. I don't see the Lions collapsing, so I don't see him getting fired. I feel like you extended a guy a little bit early when you could have had a couple more pieces of information that you could have used to evaluate the man. And so the whole notion of lame duck should not apply to this version of the Lions because now Jim Caldwell is tied to the Lions and Bob Quinn is tied to Jim Caldwell. That's a knock on Bob Quinn, in my opinion. You could have had a situation where you could have distanced yourself from the man should, the end of the season come and there's not that success. This team has to win a postseason game. You can't keep giving guys deals. You can't keep, this is pro sports. You got to win in the playoffs. He's shown he can get the team to the playoffs. He's shown he can have decent seasons, and this is probably going to be another one, a good season. But now, when it comes down to going to the postseason and going on the road versus a Seattle team where if you had performed, you could have thumped them, you look unprepared, tons of drops, you look like the team didn't belong on the field. So if that happens again, now you're tied to this man for a couple more years. And I understand the notion, too, though. Jim Caldwell is beloved by Martha Ford. I mean, look what video they aired after the game. They won on the Giants versus on Monday night. They aired a video of happy birthday to Martha Ford. Where's Martha? And it's kind of like a secret, I think, among coaches where, look, suck up to the Lions organization, suck up to the brass, and you might, just get to the postseason and you might get yourself extended. Whereas everybody else that's watching along, podcasters, sports radio, talking heads, everybody that looks at it goes, when are you going to start evaluating based upon results in the playoffs? That's all I care about at this point in time. We've seen them go against New Orleans. We've seen them go against Dallas. We've seen big-time games. I'm just waiting for when the big-time game happens, the Detroit Lions come out on the other side with a victory.
So what I'll argue is that if this season, I do agree that if they finish another crappy season, and there are so many obvious points that it was all Jim Caldwell's fault, then yes, I will concede to you that signing him at this point was too early. But what I will say is that I do believe this season, if they do end up going like 9-7 back into the playoffs and then get blown out again, it's not going to be because of Jim Caldwell. It's going to be because of injuries. And that was part of the reason why we didn't do anything last year. Matt Stafford with a bum finger. No Amir Abdullah, no Theo Riddick, and our passing game was essentially nerfed at that point. So if we have a healthy roster, we are going to have success this season.
Okay, I'm hoping. Do you think that you've seen what Minnesota did on offense? Oh my God, Case Keenum is emerging again with Minnesota, and that offense looks potent. This is a big game coming up this Sunday, bro.
Yeah, Case Keenum's not going to do garbage. He's not going to do anything this week. I imagine the Lions are going to get to him at least 4 times, and he's going to be completely rattled.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. I want to turn to what we saw on Saturday night, Michigan State versus Notre Dame. I watched the game, and you brought up a great point. I watched the game up until L.J. Scott fumbled the ball. Once he did that and Notre Dame was able to take advantage, I said, you know what, I'm out. I mean, we got a lot of traffic for Siri describing the game as a destruction. It just was a situation when you evaluate the Spartans, you say to yourself, you can't play big-time teams, big-time opponents, and have that many turnovers. You can't look that inept in big-time situations. It's unfortunate because of the fact that Michigan State didn't play its best game in front of their home crowd. And you asked a great question. I'm curious to know when you turned it off, and you asked, when is it okay to turn off a game? And there have been situations for me where I've turned off games and the Tigers have come back, the Lions have come back in situations, when they were losing. But for me, the answer to that question is it's okay to turn off a game when you feel your blood is boiling to the point where you can no longer be sane and rational. When you're going to throw things down, when you're going to start cussing galore, when you want to, fling the remote at the TV, maybe it's time to turn off the game and do something else. There's a plethora of options nowadays in 2017. But also, too, another way of looking at it is when you feel like your team can't win anymore, it's okay to turn off the game and not ride it out. Because I was telling my father-in-law when we started the game, I'm like, dude, it's hard to watch college football because of all the stops, the commercial, stopping the ball, stopping the clock every first down. It's a long grind. And when people say, do you prefer college over NFL? I kind of prefer the NFL because it's faster. And college, you got to really invest. And I'm finding it hard to invest in both the NFL and college football, being a guy with kids. And sometimes I got to choose out on the National Football League. But I feel like as a fan, you can turn it off whenever you think that your team can't win anymore or when your anger gets to the point where it's out of control.
Yep, right around I gave it until halftime because I think up until that point, they were still looking somewhat competitive. And yeah, the L.J. Scott fumbling going into the end zone was really just the icing on the cake. And I was like, I can't watch it anymore. I'm going to get loud. I'm going to probably wake up my child at this point. I have better things I can do. I can do laundry. I can, wash a bunch of effing bottles. I just couldn't take it anymore. They clearly weren't going to come back. And I just, like, whatever, we'll come back next week.
Yeah, it was tough, man, because Michigan State was looking to make a statement. Kelly at Notre Dame was trying to also make a statement, and they performed well. They executed everything pretty decently, and they made Michigan State, make some turnovers, and it was really unfortunate. But some news was made earlier this week. The Michigan State game is going to kick off 7:30, not this Saturday, but the following, October 7th, in Ann Arbor, night contest. What do you think?
Whenever I think with rivalry games, you pretty much just gotta throw everything out the window, and anything can happen at this point. So I'm pumped. I think under the lights, it's gonna be a good game, and I just hope that we can. I hope we don't get blown out because that would just suck royally.
Any preliminary plans that you're setting up? I mean, a night game is great for me in that I can set up a full day of work. I can do what I got to do here at the office, and then I can get home and potentially set up shop. I'm not sure if I want to go out because going into the game, I feel like, you know what? If Wilton Speight was going to be the quarterback, Michigan State could have been more competitive. I feel like Michigan lucked into their quarterback, and Wilton Speight got hurt over this last weekend, and they found a quarterback that's maybe 10% better than the previous starter. And I go, uh-oh, if this offense for Michigan gets rolling, now they're coming off of a bye, so you're not exactly sure who's going to be the starter or what's going to happen with that Michigan offense. But I feel like Michigan might have lucked into a lot more success than they would have had with Wilton Speight.
I know I was watching that game when Spate went down, and he got smushed. I mean, did you watch that when he got hurt?
Yeah, I was like, oh boy, I thought that in essence John O'Corn was going to come in and soil his pants, but he came in and did great. Got his team into the end zone. That's the name of the game. Take your team to the end zone, and he was able to do that.
So it looks like Michigan's going to get lucky again, and they'll have a decent quarterback for the rest of the way. But I still don't think Michigan's going to really do a whole lot the rest of this season.
Ooh, I like it. So preliminarily, you think that Michigan State's going to be an entertaining contest that we can watch all 4 quarters? Probably not.
All 4 quarters. I think State will probably hold on for a little while, but I think at some point it's just the dam is gonna break, and Michigan will probably end up the victor.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of the Motor City Sports Rant, recapping the Lions and a little bit of Michigan State. Thank you, Jason, for giving us some time. I appreciate it. Get on about your business, and I look forward to, hopefully, I know that you're saying you're not big-timing me, but you got to get back in the studio, man. We got to get some warfare. We got to have some fun.
I will be there.
All right, thanks, Jason. We'll talk soon.
Later.
Okay, nice, idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.